Hi friends, welcome back to Disabled in Nature, where we talk about all things that are disabled in nature, and sometimes we might even go outside. We're back on our shenanigans this week, here with another educational video, because September is National Service Dog Month. Join me to learn about all of these good boys and girls that assist people with disabilities. What are the laws surrounding service dogs? What are you and what are you not allowed to ask a service dog handler? And why can't you pet them? All these questions and more will be answered in this video, so let's jump into it. Let's start with, what even is a service dog? A service dog is a dog of any breed that has been trained to do a specific task related to assisting someone with their disability. There are so many tasks that service dogs can do. They can include mobility assistance dogs, like pulling wheelchairs or picking dropped items up off the ground. There are alerting service dogs that are trained to alert their handler if they sense things like low blood sugar, an oncoming seizure, or hearing dogs that alert their handler to a sound like a doorbell or phone ringing. These are just some of the tasks that service dogs can be trained to perform. It can be any task as long as it is related to that person's disability. Service dogs can be of any breed. That's right, any breed. They're not just labs, they're not even just big dogs. A small dog, like a Chihuahua, for instance, could be a service dog if it is trained to do a specific task related to someone's disability. So what rights do service dogs and their handlers have? There are lots of different laws that cover service dogs and their rights in the United States anyway. So there's the Americans with Disabilities Act, or the ADA. That covers most services and like public places that someone might encounter, and employment, so taking your service dog to work, which you can do as a reasonable accommodation. There's the FHA, which is the Fair Housing Act, that covers service dog use in housing and like rental housing and stuff. And then there's the ACAA, which is the Air Carrier Access Act, and that covers service dog use on airplanes. In general, a service dog can accompany its handler anywhere that they go. So work, shops, buses, planes, trains, rideshare services like Uber. Yes, that's right. If you're an Uber driver, you cannot deny someone access to your non-pet friendly Uber if they have a service dog. Restaurants, service dogs are also allowed in restaurants. Basically anywhere that a service dog user can go, their dog can accompany them, unless there are very specific safety concerns. Like one of the specific examples I can think of would be like taking a dog to the behind the scenes areas at a zoo. You might not be able to take your service dog there because there might be animals that might react detrimentally to having a dog, a predator type animal in their space, or there could just be like disease transmission kind of concerns with having a dog in animal areas. So that's one of the specific examples that I can think of, but that just gives you an idea of how specific the exceptions are to where a service dog can go. You can't just be like, oh, this is a restaurant, there's food here, there can't be a dog in here. That's not acceptable. The service dog can go in the restaurant or the bar or whatever. Now that we've covered the basics of service dogs, I thought it might be fun to do a little true or false moment to quiz you on your knowledge of service dogs and see how many you can get right. Let's go. Question number 1. There is specific documentation that identifies a service dog as a service dog. False. There is no required identification materials for service dogs in the United States. You don't have to register them as a service dog. There is no service dog license or anything like that. There is a voluntary identification procedure, I believe, that you can go through. I will link that in the description below. I don't know too much about it. Question number 2, true or false? All service dogs must wear a vest. False. There is no mandatory uniform or outfit for a service dog. A service dog could just be on a leash and a collar. A service dog might have a vest. A service dog might have a harness, like if they're a guide dog. Basically, the takeaway here is that there is no one way that a service dog might look. They can be of any breed. They can be wearing anything. Now, the question everyone has, can I pet the service dog? This is a trick question because the answer is, it depends. In general, I would say no. If you see a service dog out in public, do not approach it, do not distract it, don't try and pet it. That dog is working. And in lots of cases, service dogs have a very, very important job to do that protects the health and the well-being, and sometimes even, a life or death type situation for their handler. If you distract a dog, say, that is trained to detect oncoming seizures and keep their handler from falling to the ground, and you have that dog distracted and a seizure comes on for that person and they fall and they hit their head, that could be a serious medical emergency that you have now caused because you were distracting their dog. So just don't. I would say that the only exception to the can I pet a service dog rule would be if you know the person, the handler of the service dog, and you've met them a couple of times or maybe even many times and you know the dog. If you're in some downtime, you might be like, hey, can I pet the dog? And if they say yes, you can probably go ahead and pet the dog. And if they say no, don't pout or whatever, just be like, oh, okay, and then probably don't ask again. And this kind of goes for any dog. The amount of stories that I've heard from service dog users that people just come up just randomly and start petting their dogs. Who raised you? Did your parents not teach you not to pet dogs that you don't know? So not ask people before you pet their strange dog? I don't understand this logic. Ask the person before you pet any dog. They could be mean. They could be reactive. They could swing around and bite you. Not every dog is nice. And some dogs are working. So please just ask. Just ask the person. If you know they're a service dog and you don't know the person, maybe don't walk up to a random stranger and ask if you can pet their service dog. That's weird. That's like someone asking me if they can take a ride in my wheelchair. No, get out of here. The next few questions are going to be rapid fire, and they're going to be targeted towards establishment holders. Let's just pretend, put on a little hat and pretend that you're the owner of a restaurant or a bar. These questions are directed at you. True or false? You can ask someone with a service dog to leave your establishment if another patron has allergies or a fear of dogs. No. False. You cannot ask someone with a service dog to leave just because someone else expresses fear or discomfort over their dog's presence. That would be like kicking me out of a restaurant because someone was afraid of my wheelchair. That person can leave, okay? That's discrimination. You can't ask for the service dog handler to leave. True or false? You can deny access to a service dog on the grounds of hygiene. False. No. Wrong-o. A service dog can accompany its handler anywhere it goes, even if you think it's a hygiene problem. It's not. Get out of here. You can charge the service dog handler for any damages that their service dog incurs while they're at your establishment. Yes, you can do this. So same thing, I'm just gonna compare it to me in my wheelchair because what else am I gonna do? If I were to come in with my 400-pound wheelchair and run into a door and tear it off the hinges, not saying I've done that before, but then you could charge me to replace the cost of the door. Just not that this is gonna happen, probably, but if a service dog comes in and chews up the table leg or something, you could charge the handler to replace the cost of the table leg. The next couple of questions come with some background information. A lot of people wonder, what questions am I allowed to ask a service dog user? Let me tell you. So there are only 2 questions that you are allowed to ask a service dog user as a owner, employee, manager, whatever, of any establishment. And those questions are, is that a service dog that is necessary because of a disability? 2, what task is it trained to perform? That's it. You can't ask anything else. So, true or false? You can ask a service dog user to have its dog perform its trained task. No, false. That's right. There are lots of reasons for this, but mostly it's just that lots of service dogs are trained to do tasks that can't be performed on cue, right? So if a dog is trained to detect an oncoming seizure, for instance, they're not going to be able to perform that task on cue. So you're not allowed to ask that. True or false? You are entitled to ask about the specifics of the person's disability that requires the service dog. That's right. No, false. You cannot pry for specifics. People don't owe you their diagnosis. It's none ya business. Like I said, there are only 2 questions you can ask a service dog user. Is it a service dog trained for use of disability? You're not allowed to ask about the disability or the specifics of it. And 2, what task is it trained to perform? Can you ask for it to perform the task so you can check? No, you can't. True or false? You are allowed to ask a service dog user to leave an establishment if their dog is being unruly or if it is not housebroken. Yes, this is true. If a service dog is barking uncontrollably or somehow out of control and the handler cannot get it under control, you are allowed to ask them to leave. And if their dog isn't housebroken, like if it's peeing everywhere, you can also ask them to leave. With the caveat being that person needs to be allowed to return without their service dog. You can't bar the person from your establishment. They can leave, drop the dog off somewhere, and they need to be allowed to come back. If you don't allow them to come back, that's discrimination. Don't do that. We don't like those. Last question. True or false? An apartment complex can charge you a pet fee and enforce breed restrictions if it is a service dog. That's right. No. Service dogs are not pets. They are tools for mobility and access and independence. Therefore, they are not subject to any rules or restrictions that are generally applied to pets. So if it's a service dog, they cannot charge you a pet fee. If it's a service dog and it's of a specific breed that they don't allow, like if they don't allow dogs over 40 pounds, or if they have one of those ridiculous pit bull bans and your service dog is a pit bull, they cannot enforce that breed restriction on you because it is a service dog. Same thing goes for pet fees at places like hotels. It's a service dog, they can't charge you for it. It would basically be like charging an extra cleaning fee because my wheelchair is gonna track in dirt. You can't do that. And lastly, a question that I think a lot of people probably have is, what is the difference between service dogs and emotional support animals? A service dog is obviously, it's a dog. The ADA, I think, might use the term service animal, but it defines service animal as a dog. And in some cases, miniature horses, but like that's like a whole other thing. So a service animal is almost always going to be a dog. And emotional support animals are not protected by the ADA, and those can be of really any species, I think, if you get a doctor's prescription for it. I don't know much about how emotional support animals work as far as getting them, but I do know that they do not have the same rights as service animal. So your emotional support animal is not protected to accompanying you into restaurants, Ubers, work, things like that. Your service animal is protected by the ADA, the FHA, the ACAA, the kind of legislation that I described earlier, but an emotional support animal would not be. They are sometimes exempt from the pet fee rules, if you have an emotional support animal and you're in an apartment complex, I believe that the Fair Housing Act does protect you from having to pay monthly pet fees. Lastly, I want to talk about the harm of fake service dogs. So there's been an issue lately of people just ordering a service dog vest online and slapping it on their dog so that they can take them into public spaces with them. And they're like, oh, it's a service dog, they're exempt. Don't be one of those people. So the reason that this is a problem is because of the reasons that I stated earlier, is that a service dog is necessary to assist someone with a disability or a chronic illness. And if they are not allowed to enter a place with that dog, they might not be able to go at all. And so when establishments are used to this influx of fake dogs that are not trained to do a specific task, they are unruly, they're barking, and they are not well behaved in public spaces, this gives a bad reputation to real service dogs that are there to do their jobs for their handlers. And there has been an increase in discrimination and the illegal denial of access to real service dog handlers everywhere in public spaces because these establishment holders are just so used to these fake service dogs that they're worried that you're not telling the truth. And that's, I think, where this asking for documentation comes in, or being really critical, asking, can it perform its task? Well, what really is your disability? And things like that, which is why we need to be so specific about what you are and are not allowed to ask. If you want to hear a firsthand account of how fake service dogs can be detrimental to the increase in discrimination and denial of access that disabled people face, I would highly recommend that you check out Molly Burke. She's a blind woman and a guide dog user, and she talks a lot about the denial of access to her and her guide dogs that she experiences in public, especially when it comes to rideshare services like Uber. I will find one of her videos on that and I will drop it in the description below. So if you're interested, please go check that out because Molly's awesome. All right, I think that pretty much covered the basics of what is a service dog, what are the laws, what are you allowed to ask, can you pet them? Hopefully now you know the answers to all of those questions. If you yourself have a disability and are wanting to look into getting a service dog, I would recommend you look up organizations in your area that train them and give them out. Generally, these are charitable foundations that will train you on how to use your service dog and give them to you for free. There are companies that train fake service dogs and will sell them to people for thousands of dollars. And whereas they think that they got a real service dog when they really didn't. And they just have basic obedience training. They're not really trained to do a task related to your disability. So I would watch out for anyone asking you to pay for your service dog. Because Molly talks about this, but to train her guide dogs is an average of $40,000. There are a lot of scams out there, so just make sure that you research the place that you're getting the dog from. Make sure that they do some training with you and the dog, that they only breed dogs with that have been temperament tested. Things like that are really important. I would advise that you go look up some content about service dog users and how to get one. Here on YouTube is a great resource, and that'll help you learn a little bit more about it. Someone that's a lot more knowledgeable than me. I just know the laws. Yeah, so that's gonna about do it. I hope you enjoyed this video all about those good boys and girls that we call service dogs. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, share it with your friends, subscribe, hit that little bell notification in case you wanna be notified every time I post a new video. Until next time, friends, be well, don't forget to get outside, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!